so much bad news already. You know, and so,
And you're going to get more?
actually, now comes the fun part, because now we're going to talk about how we're going to fight against this and what we can do about it. And you notice that I have a bag here. It says, faith stands and fear runs. And that's exactly where we want them to be. We want to put them on the run. And that's what we're going to talk about here. And I do believe in being totally honest about who I am and what I do, so.
Wait a minute, I know where she got that at from. Stacy Shore.
If they're going to say we have tinfoil hats, I've got one. And you know, they say it protects you from EMFs.
Yeah.
So I'm probably one of the smart meters, okay?
Get a picture, right?
I'm trying to find this.
You got the app there yet? Yeah, that would be the Lexar, that would be me, yeah.
Put on.
The Delphi technique, the bottom one.
I've covered it.
Is that what you want?
Yeah. That's it. Let's see now, is there a clicker?
Hang on a minute.
So, and as Judy said, I started out with a group of Agenda Secrets, and I do also work with everybody here, with Ike and Amy on Missourians Against Agenda 21. Okay. Thank you. And we started out with the Agenda Secrets, putting a group of people locally here in St. Louis that can monitor. We have 91 municipalities in St. Louis, and so we were trying to get people to work together to try to monitor what's going on in each municipality, because it truly is local in each neighborhood. The Defend Our Property is for people who don't know about Agenda 21, but they are concerned about, they see the erosion of their property rights. And so that's something that almost anybody can get involved in. And in fact, we stood outside of a meeting one time with the Oakville Senior Living Center. You may have heard about that. They were trying to put in pack and stack housing for seniors, and we stood out front and collected 200 signatures in like a matter of 20 minutes, just people wanting to defend property rights. So this is a hot topic right now. The Delphi technique. How many people here know what the Delphi technique is? Okay, we've got some pretty educated people here. So, who's actually seen it in operation? Okay, fantastic. In fact, Ron, he was with me the first time that I experienced seeing a Delphi technique situation, was actually right here in Jefferson County over at Peevely. And we walked in there and we didn't know what hit us. It's like, oh my God, this really is Agenda 21. This is real. I thought it was just, you know, something that was going to be way in the future. But the Delphi technique was developed by the RAND Corporation. It's used to build a consensus around a predetermined outcome. So they already know what they want to do and how they want to do it before any public input occurs. It's designed to make you think that that you have some say in it, but actually it's all done deal before you ever have a public meeting. It's named for the Oracle of Delphi, from which prophecies were given. It refers to someone with unquestioned wisdom and knowledge, which is what the Delphi is all about, because we can't question their wisdom and knowledge. Okay. When they had these public workshops and visioning meetings, it's a very controlled environment. You may not realize it, but you're walking into a hornet's nest the moment you walk in the door. They know who you are, they know how to manipulate you. It's all down to a science. And you're just a typical person walking in wanting to find out information, what they're planning to do. And at the same time, they're trying to get you to just agree to whatever they want and just you know, it's like Amy said, it's a dog and pony show. It's a kabuki theater. The way that they get away with that is they use the crowd as a weapon against you. If you're a dissenter, they're going to isolate you, they're going to alienate you, and they use our own sense of etiquette against us. How do you recognize a Delphi meeting? Not all meetings are Delphi. So these techniques, we want to use these specifically in a Delphi meeting. We do not want to use these, for example, when you go to your county council or your city council meeting. You're dealing with trained provocateurs who right away they've got one person who's a chairman who is going to be running the meeting. They usually have a table up front. Oftentimes they're from outside of the community. So for example, when we were at Maryland Heights, they brought in developers from Colorado. So that way you don't know them. So they are the experts in your mind. They're paid by special interest groups. They're getting grant monies. So they're actually getting paid to be there. They're not doing this out of the goodness of their heart just because they want to let the public know what's happening. They're there to sell you on something. So you might want to consider it being like a big PR movement. Okay, so who are the people that are there? You've got your professional facilitator. They keep the meeting on message, not on track. So you would think that the facilitator is supposed to keep the meeting running smoothly. No, they're supposed to keep the meeting going the way they want it to go. And if anybody dissents, they're supposed to shut that person down. They promote the agenda that nobody suspects, so people come in to a meeting thinking we're going to hear about what they want to do with our streets, and instead their agenda is they want to get all kinds of grant money and they want to put in all of these Agenda 21 programs that you have no idea that you're going to be paying for. Identify and isolate holdouts. So that facilitator is going to be looking for people that are wise to him. And that's the person he's going to seek out to isolate. The stakeholders, they seek to benefit from the outcome of the meeting. Those would be the developers. They might be planners. Anybody who stands to benefit from whatever program they're doing. So I'll be talking a little bit later about a Great Lakes Interbasin study. And in that study, they've got 5,000 stakeholders that they mentioned. 5,000 stakeholders and only 650 people attended a meeting. Okay? So what does that tell you? There must be a lot of money in it for them. They'll have shills. Useful idiots around the room to keep you from speaking out, often antagonists. Now, if Ron's still here, I guess he left. But the first meeting I was at, Lisa Panette was sitting next to me, many of you know her, and she brings up the issue of, well, I thought that this was, this is Agenda 21, isn't it? And the guy said, oh no, this isn't Agenda 21. Well, you know, we've had people say that, but no, we're just doing a public-private partnership. And I looked at the guy and I said, public-private partnership? I said, isn't that by its very definition fascism? And just then, I mean, when you think about it, that is the definition of fascism. So just then this gal jumps up and she goes, oh, I'm so offended. And she runs across the room straight over to where all of the stakeholders are standing. How surprising. But I didn't know what I was dealing with at the time, and it was very effective. It shut me up, it shut me down, because nobody wants to be offensive. And so they'll typically have these shills all over the place, and they pose just as you and me. I mean, they pretend like they are one of us. So we want to be able to recognize each one of these players. Now, we're Delphi'd each and every day. When you hear them talk about political correctness, they're shutting you up. They're shutting you down. Don't talk about politics. Don't talk about religion. You know, certain religions, we can't talk about our religion over any other religion. Don't talk about anything that matters. You know, so you shouldn't be going there. That's a Delphi technique. Shut up, sit down. You're a racist. You're a bigot. You're a homophobe. You're whatever. It's all methods and versions of the Delphi technique. They use what they call a consensus when they're doing these Delphi meetings. Now, but as we'll discuss, consensus doesn't necessarily mean that it's what everybody wants. What consensus really does is they take a little bit of this idea, a little bit of that idea, a little bit of that idea, they meld them together into something that they think it becomes. That doesn't necessarily mean that any one of these groups wanted any of that. So they deceive people when they mention consensus. It's not what you think it is. It's not the point of view of both parties. It's a collective opinion that doesn't really reflect anyone's opinion. Consensus building techniques, the facilitator says something to maneuver a group like, we're all in this together. When you first come into the room, we're all in this together. This is something everybody wants, everybody loves this, and we want to do what's so good for our community, and so we really want to hear your opinions, and they try to talk about the we, the us. Okay, that's how they get your trust, that's how they get your favor. Once they do that, once they get people to favor them, then they can start looking for the adversaries. And they will. They'll isolate them, they ridicule them, they ostracize them, they overwhelm them. We have seen this happen in some of the Common Core meetings. I'm sure you've seen that happen, where people were essentially told, you know, be nice to these people from DESI. They were very nice in coming here to speak to us, and you're being rude to them. That's because when they set up the meeting, they brought everybody in. It's all we, us, we're a big group, all looking out for what's best for our kids. And then when somebody disagrees with them, you're being you're being mean. You're being argumentative to those people, and they're being nice and even coming to speak to us. So that's how they build consensus. Consensus strategies set up what's called mass neurosis. People know the consensus isn't true, yet lie after lie is presented by reputable people. They pretend like they're all experts, and believe me, they're not experts. This leads to cognitive dissonance, which means an irreconcilable conflict has been set up. So they're telling you that, for example, Well, I've got pictures back there from the meeting that Ron and I was at, where they said, we're gonna have everybody, this is our vision of a home, of a neighborhood. So here's the typical row of houses, and then here's what we envision. And the next picture is houses with additions put on them. And they said, well, that's so your mother-in-law can move in, wouldn't that be nice? Okay, so wouldn't it be nice you could have your mother-in-law living with you after you have to build that addition onto your home? So they send you a mixed message and they confuse people. That's where the cognitive dissonance sets in. People lose their frame of reference, they vacillate, they become alienated, and then once they're marginalized, they look for the comfort of the group, and then they've got you. So we want to put an end to that whole process. Don't be rude, be assertive. We don't have to take what they're doing and what they're telling us. Speaking out against bad policies is not rude. I mean, when we tell them, no, I don't want to put an addition to my house for my mother-in-law, that's not being rude. That's being honest. What can I say? The goal of the Delphi is to shut you up, and our goal, when we come there, we need to stand our ground. Faith stands, fear runs. And so we need to stand our ground, keep the faith, work together, speak up. Don't let these people intimidate you. They will try to shut you down. They will try to separate you, isolate you from the group. They might even send a police officer. We've had some of our people who have been confronted by the police. You've seen it. So they do everything they can to isolate people. Don't let this happen. Okay. What happens at these meetings? The start of the meeting, they ask for your input. They tell you we're so glad you're here. But then once you start asking questions, you're not getting your answers. You know, they will say, well, we'll answer all your questions at the end of the meeting, and the end of the meeting comes. And for example, at Maryland Heights, when they had their Complete Streets meeting, the end of the meeting came and they said, well, and now we're going to play the chip game. And they held up a green piece of paper, a little circle, and they said, we want you to go over to that table over there, there's maps, and put these green chips on the map where you want your new apartment to be. They want to put in those little pack and stack 300 square feet for 2 people, you know, so that means you've got about the size of a parking spot to live in. Yeah, so that's typically how they'll try to shut you down. So they'll tell you all through the meeting, sure, you can ask questions, but then when it's time to ask questions, you're never going to get your questions asked or answered. They'll tell you, write your questions down. Write them down, put them on a piece of paper, we'll collect them, and then we'll get them, we'll announce them at, you know, during the meeting, you'll ask the questions answered. Yeah. Well, they can pick and choose what questions they're willing to answer. And secondly, they may not even do any of them. They may have their own preset questions. You don't know that those questions really came from the crowd. You have no way of knowing that, and that is the classic Delphi technique at that. That was one of the first methods that they used. We don't want to go into these meetings without support. When we go to a Delphi meeting or an Envision meeting, typically it's for a community event. They might be the Great Streets, it might be a community redevelopment program, it might be like the Blue Ways issue that we had here. It could be a number of different things. They might want to put in a roundabout, we might have a community meeting for that, or build a pack and stack building somewhere. So we want to have our own groups ready and knowledgeable before we ever go to one of these meetings. The day of the meeting, we want to try to get together and meet, preferably about 30 minutes beforehand so that everybody can recognize everybody while they're at the meeting. Now, some of us, we know each other very well and we'd recognize each other. But, you know, you might have some new people who want to work with you and fight this agenda. And so you want to be able to know who's on your team. Arrive and leave separately. You do not want these facilitators and the shills and the stakeholders to know that you have a team of people coming here. You want them to think that you're just a concerned citizen who wants to learn about what's happening. No eye contact with each other. So Bev and I wouldn't be looking at each other, we'll be looking around the room. Actually, I would be checking out the stakeholders and the shills and trying to get to know who all's there. So don't be spending a lot of time with eye contact with each other. That's kind of a giveaway and they look for that. Have a common meeting place after the meeting so that you can debrief and talk about it. Do not show up wearing matching shirts. So we don't all want to show up wearing mom's shirts. I mean, I love my mom's shirt, but we don't all want to show up wearing a mop shirt or a Tea Party shirt or tinfoil hats. Those are dead giveaways. When you get there, they're going to have somebody posted at the front entrance. And they're going to have a little sign-in sheet. Sometimes they'll have a website, and they'll say, please RSVP and let us know you're coming, and put down your questions and stuff. So what do? Do you RSVP? Do you sign in? No. That will just give them ammunition that they can use against you. So the less they know about you, the better off you are. Don't RSVP, do not sign in, just walk right past them. You can smile pretty as you walk on by. Don't put a name tag on, sometimes they'll want you to wear a name tag. They will be taking pictures of you. They have to prove they had a meeting. So they will be taking pictures of you. You may want to do something to keep those pictures from being turned against you. Now, a first meeting, sometimes there's a series of meetings. The first meeting you might not want to do this because you want to be rather incognito, but once they know who you are, don't let them get a good shot at you because they will use your picture in their own marketing campaigns. And so I don't know about you, but I don't want to be blasted on their website showing that, oh, she just asked this. Because I don't. So what you can do, once they know you and they recognize you and that game is up, you can actually put face stickers on saying no great streets or something. You know, they won't use your picture in an ad campaign if you got that on there. You know, so that's one thing you could do to avoid the pictures being taken. There's a secret to how you seat because they will have their stakeholders posted all around here, and they will think that they're just getting a typical crowd that they're used to. They may or may not be expecting opposition. We can improve our appearance of looking like we're greater in numbers if we seat ourselves properly. We have our people together. Let's say we've got 10 or 15 people, and I know this says, that one thing said to bring 25 people with you, but sometimes we don't get 25 people. So if you seat properly, it will make a big difference. It'll make that 10 people look like they're 30 people. There's different seating styles. There's the theater style where they've got chairs all lined up kind of like a theater, and then at the front of the room they'll have like a table where where all the facilitator and some of the stakeholders sit. Sometimes they'll have the round tables, kind of the way we've got them here. And then sometimes they will split people up into different rooms. That's another way that they will isolate you. You need to be flexible. Sometimes when they have it set up with multiple rooms, when you're meeting beforehand, you might want to break it down saying you've got people in group A, B, C, D, just in case they tell you, okay, everybody who lives in this zip code, you go to that room. Everybody who lives in that zip code, you go to that room. Or they might say, everybody who loves this idea, go here. Everybody who doesn't, go here. And if you just have a moderate opinion, then you go here. So you want to be prepared because you want to have your people in each one of those rooms. They will try to isolate you. What can happen is they can get everybody in one room, and in the meantime, they've got all their stakeholders in another room voting, and they voted and said everything looks well, we just love this idea, and you've been all in another room and you've never voted. So that's just some of the games that they will pull. So you've got to be ready for that, so you might want to have your people change up and be able to break down into groups. When you're in the theater seating, you're gonna want to have the people who sit in that diamond pattern. See, there's this diamond pattern here. So you want to try to arrange yourself into that diamond pattern, and then maybe one person at each corner of the room. You're going to want to have some people who are walking around. Typically, they have shills and stakeholders that will be walking around in the meeting, trying to keep everything under control, trying to keep us well herded up. And so we want to have some people walking around the outside of the room too. And our people can be carrying some signs. Now these are a little big, and in the meetings you might want to have some little smaller ones that might only be this big, but you might want to be carrying a sign like this. Okay? So you can carry it around. Like that? We've had these signs we've used at quite a few meetings. The property rights ones. So in a theater seating style, that works very well to do the diamond pattern. Now, if you're in a situation like this where you've got tables, you want to try to have 2 people at each table. And again, pretend like you don't know each other. Okay. The odds are they typically have 8 people to a table. They're going to have a facilitator at each table. They're going to have a stakeholder at each table, and they're going to have a shill at each table. So they're going to have 3 or 4 seats that they're going to claim right off the bat. So if we have 2 people at each table, if we can possibly do that, it's going to shut them down. So that's another good way to set that up. And again, you want to have a few floaters who are moving around. Okay. When you first get there, you want to gather as much information about anybody you see there as you can. You want to be able to determine who are the stakeholders, who are the facilitators. So start wandering around, do some small talk. Oh, so you're a developer. Oh, well, that's very interesting. Where are you from? You know, just get to know who are these people. This will be very important later on because when you break down into a situation where you're voting, you're going to want to stop those people from being able to vote because I guarantee you they will vote. And so we need to be able to say, you shouldn't be voting. You're not from here, you're a stakeholder, you're getting paid to be here. you should not be voting. And we need to be adamant about that. Ask a lot of questions. Find out where they live, where they work, what their occupation is why are they here? And if you do that, you're going to go a long way toward determining exactly what their role is here. We want to stop the voting. They're going to give you, like some of the meetings, they have, I've got it quicker, here it is. They're going to have, don't ask me how I got this. Okay, well, we want to shut them down any way we can. What they'll do is they will start asking you things like, for example, if it's a community development or a streetscape program, they'll start asking, do you like streetlights or sidewalks? Which do you like better? Yeah, and of course, they don't allow you to have none of the above. You can't vote no, I don't want any of it. So if you click on, well, I think I like streetlights better than the sidewalks. Cha-ching, you just let them check a box. We don't want to give them that ammunition. So do not use one of these. Take them and don't use it, okay? Ron?
Teresa, I want to know what meeting you're still voting on.
You know, I have been talking about the streetlights. I have the Beta Star program, a copy of it at home, and the streetlights. I never could figure out the streetlights. What's the deal with the streetlights that they want to have new streetlights so much? And it comes to find out that they actually get points as a star city for having streetlights that will have ambient lighting so you can see the Milky Way at night. Now, I don't know about you, but in St. Louis, I don't want to see the Milky Way at night. But every criminal would love it. But anyway, so they will have clickers like this. Do not use them. When we were at Maryland Heights, we had a crowd that was bigger than they anticipated, and they were in the middle of voting. And there's this guy that comes running in. Do you remember this? He comes running in, and he goes, "I'm voting for this," and he's got the clicker up like this. They did not have enough stakeholders there, so they called for troops, they called for reinforcements, handed them clickers and just started clicking away. So
skew the results.
yeah, so watch out for that. They do that kind of stuff. Remember I mentioned earlier the chip game? That was another thing. Do not play the chip game. Okay, because again, they put that on their website. If you put a place there that's where I want my apartment to be, guess what? That's where your apartment's going to be. Okay, they take it seriously. Ask a question. Let's see. Okay, so during the meeting, you want to ask a lot of questions. Now, one of the techniques we can do is good cop, bad cop. Not everybody is the type of personality that is going to confront these people. Some people just don't feel comfortable doing that. But what we can do is we can kind of do whack-a-mole. We can take turns and we can wear them down. So one person asks them a question, and if they try to shut that person down, then this person over in this part of the room asks, well, I wanted to hear the answer to her question. You know, so you can have somebody that's just sweet like Carol. I mean, how could they be offended at Carol saying, but I wanted to hear I wanted to hear the answer to Teresa's question. So you play whack-a-mole and you wear them down, keep hitting them with questions, and reinforce and back each other up. Do when they ask you to write down questions, do not write down questions, okay? Because they're not gonna use your question anyway. They're gonna pick and choose what they want. It's all a predetermined outcome, so why be a part of the game? You know, it's designed for us to lose, but you know what? We can expose them. And that's the goal here. We want to expose them for who and what they are. More things that we can do. Hold protest signs. Well, we do pretty good at that. And if you don't feel comfortable bringing something this big in, you can take something that's small that maybe you can even tuck it in your purse or tuck it in a notebook and just haul it out at the time, during the meeting. Like I said, don't give them the photo op, put stickers on your face, move around the room asking questions. Hand out flyers. If you notice those handouts that I gave, I had a handout that I would give. Notice, this county is a member of ICLID. Okay. St. Louis already has several communities that have joined ICLID. I named those cities. This meeting is designed to manipulate public opinion into approving their plan using a Delphi technique to block opposition and discard opinions. This method uses peer pressure to shame you and silence you. So this way people know, okay, there's something different about this meeting, so they will be watching for that.
I'm going to be getting them.
I also list websites.
I said I'm going to be
Here's one
getting
that
them.
I would love, eyesona21.org. That one's on here. I mentioned in here about upcoming legislation, which this is old, so that legislation was passed. And then on the back, I give information on what they can expect to see that the facilitators and the stakeholders are going to try to do during the meeting, and why it's a bad idea. So you can come out with little flyers like this, pass them out to people before they even enter into the meeting. At Maryland Heights, we had a full protest before the meeting, and so as people are coming for the meeting, all of us were lined up holding these signs. I mean, remember that? Between the protest and using these techniques in that meeting, they scrapped the Great Streets program in Maryland Heights. And if you would like to watch the video of that, you can go to YouTube and do a search, Dorset Road Great Streets protest. And it'll show you a very good example of the things that we did in the meeting.
I'm just curious as to how you get so many people motivated that you could line the streets up. I mean, I'm just having trouble getting people to understand, let alone then on top of it, activate.
We had a meeting to educate people beforehand, so that we were educating people on what Agenda 21 is, so that they knew that this was bad stuff and they wanted to fight against it. I don't know, you guys were there, what brought you there? Yeah, lots of email. We developed a pretty big email list. We networked with other groups. MOPS did a great job of getting the word out.
Takes a lot.
We did work with other groups to promote and let people know about it.
And the good thing about that too is it drew attention to this meeting and that we were there, and the media came.
So you were in the paper?
Stations
Oh,
came.
yes, we called the news media beforehand.
Oh, you guys called them? Okay.
We called them.
Okay.
We told them
So
we're
that's
having
a
a
good thing,
protest.
that's a good thing to do if you're gonna do a protest, put a press release out or call the media and tell them we're gonna be raising some heck, so you might wanna come film it.
We did. We had Channel 2, we had Channel 5, we had Channel 11, can't remember if Channel 4 was there, yes?
Another thing we did when we went to that Powder Valley, when the federal government sent in their facilitators to use their waterways, they made people park about a mile away. So if you were with, as I was, if you're with the older folks, I would say be prepared, and because sometimes, and there's plenty of parking, we could have parked right by there, but they were trying to put a roadblock not to let a lot of people. So you could even be prepared to have some lightweight wheelchairs with you to push people up who are gonna need the help, because they put those roadblocks.
They do, they find many ways. See, they want to have the meetings to say they've had the meeting, so they can check off that box and move on.
Got public
Yeah.
consensus.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And so they will try to put roadblocks to people attending or coming. They will have them at bad times of the day so that people can't show up. They will have them in small rooms so that people can't get into the meeting. So they'll do all kinds of things to try to keep people from attending.
Or not announce the meeting till the day before, which has been done in the Kansas City area.
Yeah, they'll do all kinds of tactics like that. If you do go to a Delphi meeting, it's worse if you go there and you don't do anything and you don't say anything. You are actually hurting your own cause, because they will count your very presence as a positive thing. And they will say, we had all these people that showed up at our meeting. So if you show up, you better be willing to speak up and say, I don't want this. Because otherwise, believe me, they will say that you absolutely do that. Hand out flyers, bring your iPhones and video cameras. Would anybody here have ever heard of Rodney King if it wasn't for video? Right. So we need to be able to document and show what they're doing and what they're saying. I wish that I would have had a video of that guy at Maryland Heights who said, well, we just have too many senior citizens here and they just don't know how to take care of their own home anymore, so they're going to have to move into these apartments.
That's what the mayor said.
Yeah.
Teresa, that's what the mayor said, right?
One of the stakeholders said
Oh, I
that.
thought the mayor said that.
The developer said that. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Make sure it was in there.
And what happens is people can get so offended when they make a statement like that, yeah, there were a lot of people that just got up and they walked out the door. Some people were muttering, I've had enough of these commies, and they walked out the door. That is not the thing to do. Do not walk out the door, because they will say, everybody just loves this. So we want to be able to show their bad behavior, and we want to stick around and make sure that they know we disapprove of what they're doing. Media tactics, well, we touched on that a little bit where I said that we called the media. If you do have the media show up, because in most cases the media is not your friend. And if we had the media show up, if we were holding a meeting right now and the media showed up, do you know who they would pick to talk to right now? Because of this. They will look for the one person who looks like they're a little bit out in space somewhere, and that's who they're going to speak to. So you want to pre-arrange with everybody in your team that there's only one or two people that the media speaks with, and those are the two spokespeople for the group. And if any media contacts you, send them to your spokesperson. Okay? If you another way is to have a flyer prepared with bullet points on exactly what you're opposed to about this meeting. You might want to have a flyer prepared and just hand them that. This technique is great. For example, after let's say a county council meeting, and the news media is always all over Charlie Dooley after county council meeting, or You know, they're gonna wanna interview somebody. Now, just imagine somebody standing right behind Charlie Dooley. Okay? Saying, hey, you know, it's gonna show up. It's gonna show up. So you'll get your point across, even if the media doesn't. Or even if you're across from Charlie Dooley and you start having a whole bunch of people hold up signs, they're gonna walk away from Charlie and they're gonna wanna find out, what are you talking about? You know, what's going on? So that's another way you can handle the media. Lots of visuals, make noise. They're gonna wanna go where the story's at. So let's give them a story. When you're tactics against provocateurs, and these people that we're dealing with are true change agents. They are well trained in how to manipulate us. So they are truly provocateurs. Do not respect them. Don't respect them. They are there to deceive you, to lie to you, and to manipulate you. So we don't want to around any suspicion, especially our first meeting with them. You know, if it's a series of meetings, the first one, we don't want them to know who we are, so we want to be rather incognito. If we do speak, don't say, I don't like what you're doing, because they're just going to turn the crowd against you. You say, we don't like what you had planned for our community because, you know, but you keep it we and us. And that way you get the rest of the crowd on your side. That will defeat their consensus vote. Your opponent should never be allowed to control the debate or the agenda. So the moment they start trying to take control back of that meeting, you take it back. Okay? So don't let them demoralize you, don't let them cut you down. I already mentioned when there's a city council or a county council meeting, that is not a Delphi meeting, that is not the time to be doing all this kind of stuff. And I use Charlie Dooley as an example, but in reality, we don't do this at county council meetings. You know, that's where you want to do it at one of these Delphi meetings. But typically, they are elected officials, and that's the difference. They're not getting paid as a stakeholder. They're not, well, maybe they are getting paid, I don't know. But we do need to show our elected officials some courtesy and respect. And so these tactics are not for that. If you're going to a county council meeting or a city council meeting, typically you have to sign in. There's a sign-in sheet. You want to get there a half hour early. You want to, I mean, they will ask you for your address and where you stand on it. You don't really have to give that information if you don't want to. The whole idea for that is they want to find out, are you one of their constituents? But really, you don't even have to be a constituent to speak at one of those meetings. It's a public meeting. Typically, they give you 3 minutes to speak as an individual. Now, in St. Louis County, if you head up a group, they will allow you to speak for 5 minutes. They did that with the Oakville Residents Unite group, with the Oakville Housing Center, where they were fighting that monstrosity, that 300 square foot apartment building for senior citizens that went in there. Sometimes they'll let you have somebody else take your time if you want to pass it on to somebody else, but you have to ask permission in order to do that. They do not like you to ask them any questions. So, you know, they may or may not, but typically they don't like you to ask them any questions. And again, you should approach it as being a concerned citizen. Other things that you might run into. Sometimes instead of having tables or a theater arrangement, they might just have big easels standing up there. And those pictures there are from Kansas City.
Mm-hmm. They call them charrettes.
Yeah, that's what they call them. So you work those the same way that you work a table. So have like 2 people at each one of those easels. Huh?
Take a magic marker and write on it.
There you go. One of the main things to remember on all of this is you just, whatever they tell you to do the exact opposite. That's this whole speech in a nutshell. Whatever they tell you to do the opposite. Okay, and here's the charrettes. Now, the charrettes, you're actually helping them to make the plan, or so you think. They might ask you, do you want the black streetlights or the silver streetlights? Okay, but you have no option. I mean, you're gonna get either black or silver streetlights. Either way, you're gonna pay. So, you know, the charrettes is just another game, another, just a different way of doing the Delphi, but it's the same thing. Again, just do the exact opposite of anything they tell you to do. If they tell you to write something on a piece of paper, do not do it. If they tell you to break down into groups and everybody that loves this, go here, and everybody that loves that, go here, don't do it. Just go wherever you want. You know, break up. You hopefully have divided your people up into different groups so that you sort out and have people in each group. Don't let these people intimidate you. See them for what they truly are. These are people who want to manipulate you and take advantage of you, and they want your tax dollars. So they're going to hurt your pocketbook. They are going to take your liberty. Time and time we have talked to these people, and we'd say, you know what you're doing, don't you? And they'd say, yeah, and they'd kind of smirk. These people know what they're doing to us, and to them it's like, I'm better than you, and it's a badge of pride. I mean, it's just very offensive, just the attitude that they could be that, that they would do that to their own fellow citizens. You know, these people are just greedy. Okay.
Hey, Teresa?
Yes?
I don't interrupt, but did you want to get into some local stuff?
Yeah, and I'm just wrapping up right now.
Okay, cool.
So, okay, so do not succumb to their ridicule. If they try to ridicule one of your members, have somebody else stand up and say, but I want to hear what she has to say. I want to know the answer to this question. You know, so don't fall for their ridicule. The best thing as far as a quote is what Beverly Eekman had to say. It's time to stop trying to fight wars armed only with the rules of etiquette. Because they use our sense of etiquette and our sense of what's socially acceptable against us. We need to put a stop to that. So, you know, that's about it as far as anything to do with the Delphi technique. Is I'm going to move on into what's happening in St. Louis right now, and if you have any questions, you can ask them of me later, because I know we're running short on time. What the battle we're having right now in St. Louis, we've had an issue. Has anybody heard of landlord licenses at Teresa? Has anybody heard about the landlord licenses in St. Louis County?
Yes.
Okay. What St. Louis County has done, they proposed bill number 72, actually it's substitute bill number 1 for 72 and substitute bill number 1 for 73, proposed by Councilman Mike O'Meara. And in this legislation, substitute bill number 1 for 73 required a landlord license. They said there were too many absentee landlords, and so they wanted to crack down on them. In reality, what this bill would do, it required that not only landlords get a license to rent out property that they may own, it required individuals to get a landlord license. So if you have somebody just coming to visit your home for even one night, you had to go to the county, you had to apply for a license. Now, they said there's no cost to this license, but that's another cooking game, because you would have to get an occupancy permit for that license, which would cost $80 for a home, $40 for an apartment. Okay, but along with that, you would also have to pass all the zoning codes, so you'd have to allow them to come in and inspect your home before you can allow somebody to come into your home. So let's say you have a family member, now if it's less than 2 degrees separation in your family, you had to get the license, and you would have to go through the whole rigmarole, allow them to come and inspect your home. Even if you're having a family member or somebody that's sick that you want to help out, or maybe you know somebody who lost their job, they're going through some hard times, they need a place to crash for a little bit. You'd still have to apply to the county and get their permission to allow anybody to come into your home and let them know who's in your home every day. Okay, now, if it's within the 2 degrees separation in your family, like your children, you would have to apply for an exemption from the county to get permission to allow your own children to live with you. Yeah.
Okay, what you say is it's okay.
No.
For their insurance.
No, you would still have to get the exemption, and you would have to provide proof to the county that they're within that 2nd degree of exemption.
Fort Collins, Colorado already is doing
That
that.
means like, it would have to be your brother or your child or your grandchild within 2 degrees of separation.
Inventory monitor.
They have a whole chart that shows that.
That's all you need to know.
Yeah,
They want
you
to
can
see
find
what's
it
inside your
online,
home.
but it couldn't be like a niece or a nephew or an uncle or something like that. It would have to be like a brother or a sister or a grandchild or grandparent. But you'd have to apply for an exemption. So they would have to know like each and every time. Now, there was a second part, the substitute bill number 1 for bill number 72. That was the nuisance law part of it. Now, that one required that if you had a tenant who, let's say they had a noisy dog, that they broke the nuisance laws 3 times in a 2-year time frame. Okay, any landlord or anybody that has a landlord license would have to evict them and could not allow anybody else to live in any of their properties until everything was all squared away with the county. So if it goes to court or anything like that, that would mean that you would have to evict all of your tenants. Okay? So let me bring this to date. This is what we were battling. This is what was presented to us. We had many people that fought this at county council, and we had an unusual group of people that all sided together. For example, the guy that headed up the Equal Opportunity Housing Authority, okay, typically we're on opposite sides. He even came forward and said, this is going to hurt the poor people. I mean, we even had people bringing up the point that, you know, this is going to set aside a registry of gay people, because you have to register. If you're not married, you have to register. Yeah. So, I mean, it was bad. I mean, all across the board. I mean, we were even telling the Democrats, I can't believe the Democrats are behind this. You know. But as it turned out, Councilman Amira withdrew the landlord licensing, but it's going to come back in about a month.
Oh.
He said he's going to withdraw it to revamp it and reissue it. So that was about a month ago, and so we'll be facing it here again in another month.
we'll put an exemption for the poor and the exempt days.
Yeah, probably, but you'll still have to get permission to allow your kids to
Yeah,
live.
all right.
You know, and then the nuisance part of the bill, that passed. Now, the other thing with the nuisance part of that bill, like I said, if my neighbor has a dog that barks, I mean, it would be real easy for me to get rid of my neighbor. All I have to do is call the cops a few times in a couple of years, and bingo, I don't have a problem with barking dogs anymore. You know, but what I pointed out at the county council is that neighbor with the barking dog, they have 2 children. Okay, so there's 4 people that would be homeless at that point. The people that own that house, they have a little girl, and they had to buy another house because he got relocated. So if they lose that income, now they're gonna be homeless. So because I complain of a barking dog, there's gonna be 6 people homeless now. You know, so it's a terrible law. Now, the nuisance part of the law, they passed. So
Does that apply to the whole county or just to
That's the whole county.
unincorporated areas?
Oh, yeah, unincorporated areas. Yeah, because the people in municipalities, they still have some protections from the old city, but, you know, the county's gonna start pressuring them, wanting to all be standardized. So that's what we're facing in St. Louis, is they want to be able to control and know where each and every person is and who's in each and every house. So that's what we're looking at coming down the road. So within the next month, I expect it to rear its ugly head again.
Do you think we can stop it?
We'll have to keep fighting it. I mean, we were fighting it, and at least we got Mike Amira to withdraw it for now. We're missing 1 person on the county council, and so right now there's 6 people, and it was evenly tied. They're gonna have a special election in August, and I'm sure they've kind of gerrymandered the district, so I'm sure they're probably expecting to get a Democrat in there, and then that's when they'll bring it up for a vote. It'll be probably right after the August election. So that's what we're looking at with that. The other thing that we're working on in St. Louis County is the city-county merger. There is a meeting coming up. Let's see, I think I've got it on the sheets over here. Let's see. There's a meeting coming up, and I brought some flyers on it. I'll have to dig them out. It'll be on June 6th at the Lodge. It's in De Pere. It's in De Pere. And that's the, huh?
Friday night?
Yeah.
We know how to have a good time.
Okay. So there's an organization called Better Together.
Better together.
Better Together.
The collective, isn't it wonderful?
Huh? Yes, you're right. It's June 5th at 6 o'clock, the Lodge in De Pere at 1050 De Pere Road. Okay. And,
This is coming Thursday.
no,
Thursday.
actually Jennifer Bird and Jack Bowman are sponsoring this. So this is a good meeting. This is people who oppose the city-county merger, but they will have some people from Better Together there. So I know this is the same night that some of us will be at the Center for Self-Governance.
Plenty of time to get over there.
Right, well, part of the thing on the city-county merger is they have to do that before they can create a regional government. And so they're really pushing this. Rex Singfeld, our local billionaire, is the person funding Better Together. Him and Bert Walker, he's also funding Better Together. So we've got some huge money people that are behind it because their property values are going to go sky high. They've been buying property down in the North City area. And this one is being sponsored by the anti-city county merger groups. They're gonna have some people from Better Together there, but it's being run by Jennifer Bird and Jack Bowman, who both oppose it. So it can be there. Now, the other part is, the reason that the city-county merger is so important is we have, I've been attending meetings run by Representative Sue Allen. Okay, run by Sue Allen about setting up a regional government. They are doing it under the guise of resolving taxation issues. Okay, and the name of the committee was the St. Louis Metropolitan Statistical Area Joint Interim Committee for Taxation and Governance. And they had a guy by the name of Robert Lang from the Brookings Institute who came and spoke, and he said for them, the way to institute regionalism is to not let the public know and go ahead and do it anyway. I mean, and I've tried to videotape as much of his presentation as possible. It is on my YouTube channel, so you can try to find that. Just type me in, or it might be under Surfer 1-1. But I finally found out what that name of that committee kept bothering me until I found out the real map. The St. Louis Metropolitan Statistical Area is actually 16 counties. 8 counties in Illinois, 8 counties in Missouri. So that is what they're working towards. Already you've got 1 STL, which is 8 counties, 5 in Missouri and 3 in Illinois. And what they'll do, the advantage to them for this regional government is already 1 STL under the umbrella of East-West Gateway. They've all signed memorandums of understanding to do whatever 1 STL tells them to do. So for example, remember when the voters turned down the China hub? And we said, we don't want any part of it? Okay. Well, now they've rebranded it. It's the Midwest hub, the Midwest Mexican hub. Okay. Now, they don't want to bring it before a vote anymore because they know it's going to be a failure. So what they'll end up doing, and this has been done in Georgia, so I can see the handwriting on the wall. They'll have 1 STL go to each county and tell them, we are going to build the China hub or the Midwest Mexican hub, and you need to give us X amount of dollars. And so that way, the counties will just all pitch in the money and they'll do whatever they want, and they've totally bypassed the voter, and that's what they're doing. That's the advantage of doing the regional government. So,
If the city-county merger fails, that puts this on a back burner.
it would slow this way
Slow
down.
this process.
It would slow this
So
way
we
down.
gotta work on that first one, big
Mhm.
time.
And as you notice, Jefferson County is
Yeah,
in
it's in
here.
there, I saw it.
They'll
We have
go,
a number of
Charlie
cities.
Dooley has set his eyes on St. Charles County
Others,
first,
20 of them.
and then once they get St. Charles County, Jefferson will be the next one they'll go after.
It shows Warren County on the list, but not in the shading.
Well, that's the next step,
Yeah.
the shaders on.
Phase 3.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, I just pulled this off of East-West Gateway, so.
That's the, see, MSA,
Yeah.